everyone, and welcome to a new video. I'm going to be trying a new format, and it's called Real Talk, in which me and my friend, Aldi Jesus, we discuss movies, in particular, really, really bad movies. And in today's case, we're going to be talking about War of the Worlds 2025, which is actually a pretty recent movie, at least of the making of this video. So basically, it's about a computer science, computer security analyst working for the U.S. government and finds his daily life disrupted by an alien attack. He becomes accustomed to dealing with virtual threats, and his struggle extends to secrets the government may be hiding. So it sounds pretty interesting. Doesn't that sound pretty interesting, Aldi Jesus? Sounds like a good idea, right?
Yeah.
Nothing too out of the ordinary, just standard movie, right? But the method in which they, you know, handle this movie is absolutely the opposite. Very, very, very bad. Now, that's not to say that their cast is bad. The main character, the Fed, right, who uses the cameras, is acted by Ice Cube. Everyone knows who Ice Cube is, but for those who don't know, well-known '90s rapper, right? Um, he's done movies in the past, pretty decent movies, and he acted pretty well in those movies. But in this movie, it just does not go very well at all. He just doesn't act the character very well, and you know what I mean, Aldi. It's he's a rapper, right?
Yeah,
He's
he
got
looked
that.
like he didn't want to be.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that later, but he he just didn't match the role. He's more of like a gruff city type. He'd fit in with movies that have to do with like the city or more action type movies, right? And don't get me wrong, War of the Worlds has action in it, but it's just the character he's portraying, the Fed, who you expect to be more serious and no nonsense. I'm not saying he doesn't take the role seriously. It's just he just doesn't match the energy that you expect from that type of character. Um,
Like you really
and
thought that he was more like on boots on the ground kind of guy, not an
yeah,
analyst.
yeah, more or less, more or less. It's much better summary. Uh, and besides him, there's the actor for Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which I did not expect, and I had high expectations. He's a pretty goofy actor, right? Not the best actor, but he can hold his own in a movie, right? So I was thinking, oh, okay, we got Ice Cube and we got friggin' Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid in the movie, so it's going to be pretty great. Uh, Turns out that was not the case at all. Um, my main critique of this movie, and Aldi agrees with me on this, is it's just the way the movie is handled. Like, it all takes place on like a Zoom call for some odd reason. So it like really harrows back to like COVID-19 days, if you know what I'm talking about, Aldi, right? You'll
Yeah,
be
it
on
was filmed
Zoom.
during
Yeah,
COVID,
yeah,
I believe, right?
yeah, pretty much. And it's all taking place on Zoom. He's talking to all of his, fellow federal employees, like the president of all people on Zoom, while the world is crumbling apart. So it's a little surreal in that sense. Um, and, on top of that, there's CGI used, right? And I know not all CGI is the best, right? But, there's a part where the aliens show up, right? And they start terrorizing humanity, this, and that, right? Um, the the animation is just really, really bad. And I don't know if have an idea what I'm talking about, but you've ever seen that app, Aldi, where it's like a movie maker app and it's got like those special effects where it's like a 5 second video and you have like a car crashing on top of you or something like that? I don't know if you've ever seen that
Yeah.
before. Yeah, okay. So it was like that, if not slightly more better looking, and I'm using that very, very generously. Um, it just did not look good at all. It looked like everything was almost kind of made of Play-Doh. It was very, very poor. Another aspect was, I decided to take a look at the budget, right? Because, this is it was a movie made by Amazon Prime, and I know Prime movies aren't, necessarily the best. They're not the most high quality, right? But you'd expect some effort to be put into it, right? Because it's Amazon, right? The movie had a budget of less than 10 million, and you can very clearly see that with how it's acted, animated, and well, not animated, but the use of CGI. You could tell that, yeah, it is below 10 million, but it looks even less than that when you take all that into perspective. You'd think a company like Amazon, which has a lot of money, would kind of give a crap about what they're producing, but clearly didn't. They just saw it as a cash grab. And on top of that cash grab, throughout the movie, they make it very obvious that it's an Amazon movie. They have what's his name, the actor for Roderick, right? Not the actor for Roderick. Um, the guy who acts Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, right? He is he's the boyfriend of the main character's daughter, right? And jeez Louise, he's an Amazon Prime delivery guy, right? Whatever. But they make it very, very obvious that he works for Amazon Prime, or not Amazon Prime, just Amazon, right? And
Free marketing their own,
repeat that again. I'm sorry.
free marketing in their own movie.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with marketing your own movie, right? If it, just like if Coca-Cola made a movie, there'd be a ton of Coca-Cola product placement, right? But it's just they weren't discreet about it. They were just very like loud about it. And there's a way to advertise in your movie, softly without being in your face about it. And the part that really got really wacky was there's a part where, um, they decide to fight the aliens, right? And one of the ways they need to fight the aliens is by putting some sort of virus or something in the main database of all the military programs and government programs that is all over the world. Because the aliens, for some reason, I don't know who thought this was a good idea. I mean, it's a different idea, but you'll see what I mean, Aldi, is that instead of eating people, they eat data for some reason. So it's like like they like vampires are eating uh computers and all that. That's the best way I can explain it. It's really odd, but that's just the way they
Is
did
there a
it.
reason for that?
No, there
Like,
isn't.
really?
They
Like,
actually never
really?
they never explain the reason for that. And thank you for mentioning that. They never give any good reason. Frankly, anything in the movie, they don't give a reason for it, which is, basic movie 101, right? You're supposed to give your villains a reason to why they're doing something, right? And they don't do that. But, you know, back to the main point at hand, you know, they're trying to eat the data, right? And so they realize, oh, they're eating data, so if we infect it with a virus, we can kill the aliens, right? And this is where, going back to the whole product placement argument from earlier, is one of the ways they deliver of all things, a thumb drive with a virus on it to kill the aliens. They attach it to an Amazon delivery drone. So you have an Amazon delivery drone doing like dog fights against these giant like alien tripod walkers. They're kind of like those ATSTs from Star Wars, but they got three legs. Kind of think of it like that, but way worse looking. Yeah, and they just use the Amazon drone. Oh, it's the Amazon drone to the rescue to, save the world, which is really really odd. You know, hey, props to them for being creative, I guess, but definitely not subliminal marketing, right? Another point, the other cast, right? Notice how I only mentioned two main actors because, well, those were the only ones that were memorable and I actually knew. All the others, and no hate on them, right? They have their own movie careers, right? But they were just completely forgettable. There was the Ice Cube's daughter, movie daughter, right? The daughter of the character he plays. Um, she was forgettable. He had a son, and I'll get to the son later. The son's a whole nother mess. He was pretty forgettable. There was some coworker of his, of Ice Cube's character. She was like a NASA, like a NASA researcher kind of deal, right? And who else? There was like a colonel or a general. He was pretty forgettable. And it turns out he becomes like the main villain towards the end of the movie, or like more than a little, a little more than halfway past the movie. You find out he's a bad guy, which you know they don't hint at all to make it like mysterious or something like that. But there's a way you can write all these. There's a way you can hint at someone being a villain without being obvious about it, right? And that
Don't do
makes the
that.
movie, draws you in more, right? They don't do that at all with the main villain, which is the general. But they have all this staff, right, of the government, all these other actors, and they're just completely forgettable. No hate on them, but they just were not very memorable in the slightest. Um, so the son that I mentioned earlier, right? So in the movie, Ice Cube has a son, right? And they're having typical, father-son issues, right? Because he's a Fed, right? And he's constantly using the cameras that he uses to spy on people, right? And that includes spying on his own
Violence,
kids.
kids too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like really weird and stalkerish. So I kind of don't blame the kids for being upset, but you know, excuse me. But
Well, which is
the way they carry, their relationship as, kids and parent is very, very poor. Uh, you know, despite, their dad being a Fed and spying on them, but they're just unnecessarily mean to the dad, right? They're being mean
mind
to
you,
Ice
these
Cube,
are
right?
adults too. They're not like kids.
They are adults. Um, so
It's a little ridiculous.
it is. It's childish, but whatever. It's an Amazon movie. What do I expect? The point is the son, right? So son has issues with Ice Cube. They don't get along. They don't see eye to eye, and the son is like very to put it simply, like not really anti-government, but more like they're watching you. You got to be careful. Don't trust what they're saying. Like typical Redditor suspicion of like the government type of person. And um I should have mentioned this point earlier, but on sidetrack, right? There is in the beginning of the movie, Ice Cube and his fellow feds, right, are tracking a hacker, right, who's been causing trouble across the country, right, trying to reveal the truth about the government. And I kid you not, in the back of my head, I'm thinking it's probably the son because of his, anti-government rhetoric, right? And lo and behold, what do you expect? Yeah, it's the son. And it turns out he's a whiz at hacking too. And they never explain why he is. I guess their explanation is, oh, well, the dad's good with computers, so that means he is too. It's just whatever. The point is turns out he finds out his son is the hacker, right? And so, with the help of his son, they are able to make the virus that I mentioned earlier to infect the aliens and kill them, right? Um, it's just really bizarre. They don't explain it. Uh, it's just really, really, really bizarre. You know, it's they just don't explain anything. It's like they expect you to know everything that's happening in the movie. Yeah, it's a simple plot, but not everyone's gonna guess what's gonna happen in the movie, right? And you know, based on all this, you could tell that it's a poor movie, right? I've said that a million times. You know, I checked the ratings, right? And you know how Prime inflates their ratings for movies, right? Aldi, it could be an awful movie, but they give it like 5 stars, right? So this is the first time I ever saw an honest rating on Amazon Prime. They gave the movie 2 out of 5 stars, and I could not agree more. In fact, I think 2 stars is generous for that movie. Um, and then I Googled other ratings from other sources, right? It got a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think freaking Morbius got better Rotten Tomatoes compared
It might
to,
have.
it easily might have, compared to War of the Worlds 2025 with Ice Cube in it. And IMDb, they gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, which I guess they were being zero point 0.5 points generous, however much that's worth. But the movie was just very, very bizarre. It was just a really dumb movie. You know, Aldi, I'm sure you've had this experience. When you're seeing a very bad movie, you're constantly thinking like, oh, when is this over? When's it going to end, right? Because it's killing
Oh
me
yeah.
slowly. 100%, right? Um, I'm not really that kind of person. I just suck it up and I watch the movie. But this is the first time where I've been watching a movie and I was constantly pausing it to look at the progress bar to see how much I had left. That's how bad this was. And I've never had to do that with a movie. This is the first time I've done it, and that was with War of the Worlds 2025. It was just a complete waste of my time. And this is, keep in mind, this was around what, 10 11 p.m. at night, so it's not like I was doing anything important at that time, but it just made me feel like I was wasting my time or my free time, like overall. It just was not enjoyable. So, and I know you haven't seen the movie yet, Aldi, but would you say that you would be encouraged to watch this movie after I've, voiced all my concerns? Yeah, say that again?
No, not at all.
Of course. If you could find a movie that sounds comparably bad to this, what kind of movie would you, or what movie would you say is comparable to the level of awfulness that this movie has?
I mean, I've only watched a review, but I have seen Morbius and a little Madam Web, so I would compare them to that.
So you'd
To be
say
honest
it's as
with you.
bad as Madam Web?
I'd say so.
Wow, that's actually pretty extreme. I was gonna say Madam Web was slightly better, but I mean I haven't seen it. Again, like you, I've seen the reviews or I haven't watched it, but there you have it,
Yeah,
folks. Apparently,
don't watch it.
Madam
Don't watch
Web
it.
is better. I'm sorry, repeat that. I don't want to talk over you.
Don't watch it.
Apparently, War of the Worlds 2025 is worse than Madam Web. So, there you have it. That was Real Talk with me and Aldi Jesus. If you enjoyed it, let us know. And if there's a movie you want us to take a look at, let us know and we will watch it. Thanks for